Okay, so the first person who's going to present today is Karen George. The floor is yours. Unmute and convince us. You know there's an unmute button on there somewhere, don't you?
Yes, sorry, I do. I've got it. Sorry about that. Okay, I'm Karen George, and I'm author of 5 chapbooks and 3 collections from Das Madres Press. I retired after 25 years as a computer programmer analyst to write full-time. I live in Florence, Kentucky. I enjoy photography and visiting museums, forests, cemeteries, and historic towns and bodies of water. My most recent collection, Where Wind Tastes Like Pears, was published in August. I would describe the poems as meditations on imagination, memory, wildness, and wonder, how we connect and transform, seen through the surreal landscape of dreams. Some of the poems are prose poems, some found poems created from some of my favorite poets and novelists, and some are centos. Some poems are literal dreams that I've had, and others are daydreams and imaginings. They're full of insects, birds, animals that take place in gardens, forests, bodies of water. They involve shape-shifting, and other types of transformation. And the poem I'm reading is a found poem composed from words in the story Snow White and Rose Red by Andrew Lang in the Blue Fairy book. In Sleep's Cape. Some nights she's a woman in a house made of logs, wedged with mud, seated fireside, piecing a dress of quail wings and air, tender leaves and milk teeth, needle piercing in, out, catches, scatters light. Sometimes she becomes a butterfly, folds herself, settles on a branch in warm sun, or she scissors the air open, closed. At night, clings to a cave shared with a bear. Her feet perceive root, stream, berry in his musty fur. Or she's a man diving into a body of water, the cold a blade, seizes, turns him into a bearded angelfish, red with black ribboned fins. He hovers for prey. By a kitchen window, a widow muddles moss, ashes, wizened grasshoppers, mutters words pearled with hurt. Spinning a wand, she lands, binds a wish, entangles a hazel-eyed, shuttered lover. Some nights she wakens buttered with wonder. Others, the precipice calls her name, voice laced with longing. Thank you.
Great. Okay, and you're well within your time, so there we go. And next on our list, we flip back and forth between pages here. Maryann.
There. Do we have a whole gallery screen, or am I just looking at myself and people on the side?
I've intentionally done speaker view because I'm recording.
Okay. Well, all right. Well, I'm Maryann Hurtt, and I am really excited to tell you about my new book, Once Upon a Tar Creek, Mining for Voices. I think before I start reading one of the poems out of the book, I need to tell you a little bit about Tar Creek and how the book came about. Tar Creek is in northeastern Oklahoma, and lead and zinc mining took place there until the late 1970s on what had been Quapaw Indian Agency land. And Tar Creek has been called the worst environmental disaster no one has heard of. There are numerous sinkholes. Folks in the area have some of the highest lead levels in the country, and there are 200, 300 foot tall chat piles, leftover mine tailings that are blowing toxic lead dust all over creation. And the water is orange. 30 some years ago, I went down to Oklahoma for a family reunion. My grandpa was a lead miner, and my grandma and great grandma both worked at the Quapaw Indian Agency when Oklahoma was still Indian territory. The morning of the reunion, I had my first encounter with Tar Creek. I thought someone had spray painted neon orange paint up and down the creek banks and in the water itself. It was a bright neon orange, just sort of an unbelievable color. I knew right then I really needed to know everything I possibly could about how a creek becomes orange. Since then, I've been back to Oklahoma numerous times and talked with old miners, Quapaw Indians, teachers trying to teach kids who have way too high lead levels, ranchers, family members, local environmental advocates. I've wandered through old cemeteries and down old back roads. I got lots of headaches trying to read old newspapers on microfilm. And I spent quite a bit of time at the Newberry Library in Chicago and at the Library of Congress to do some more research about that area. When I retired 8 years ago, I started organizing my notes, writing and revising and revising and revising. And Once Upon a Tar Creek finally became a collected collection of persona and narrative poems, historical and scientific notes for each poem, a glossary, graphics. I included an introduction in the book too, just because I kind of wanted to talk about how the book came about, and a bibliography. And like I say, this definitely was not a poetry book in its usual sense, and it made it kind of difficult to find a publisher that would be willing to go with all kinds of things besides just the poetry itself. And I also wanted to make sure that this book was a book that was going to be read not just by poets, but by people that would be interested in environmental kind of issues, history kind of things, or just like to read, but maybe not necessarily poetry readers. And I wanted people to understand that this, I wrote about a specific place, Tar Creek, but it's really a universal story. So after many ups and downs, I finally found a publisher, or a publisher found me, Turning Plow Press in Oklahoma. It's a small press. And I was really finally happy to connect with these people. And the book was published this past summer by them. And I am passionate that Tar Creek's story is remembered. So I will read a poem out of the book. Oh, this is what Tar Creek book looks like. That helps.
Great. 2 minutes, Maryann.
2 minutes? Okay.
2 minutes.
I got it. Okay, this poem is titled Incompetent Restricted Quapaw Indian, about 50 years old, 1924, Griffin Cemetery, Quapaw Agency, Oklahoma. Now you see him, now you don't. There he is, lined up with the old Quapaw men. Still had his hair those days, all smoky black braids. Look careful again, see his fist hold that old lump of lead. He carried it back then, knew it made him rich. But now they call him crazy, incompetent, give him a guardian, send him to Hiawatha Insane Asylum for Indians way up in South Dakota. No more money, no more self. Do-gooders write a book, Oklahoma's Poor Rich Indians, an orgy of graft and exploitation. Get folks all stirred, close down Hiawatha. Town fathers buy up the place, build themselves a golf course right over his crazy dead Indian brothers and sisters. Back to the agency, mute now, lips so tight. Now you hear him, now you don't. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. I think what I will do is switch to gallery view between speakers, just so you can see what an audience you have. And thank you for the suggestion of making sure that you put a link to your book in the chat, because when I post this on YouTube, I will put your name with a link to where people can find your book as well. And that will make it really easy for me. Okay.
Thank you.
Carol from Hawaii, you're up next.
Okay.
All right, we're ready.
Okay. I'm Carol Elena Aronoff, And I'm just trying to find myself here so I can. How do I switch views?
You don't, I do.
Okay.
Well, you can switch your own view, but
I'm just
for the
seeing
recording,
you.
here we are.
I'm just seeing you right now.
And all I see is you with a strip of people across the top. You
Okay.
can change your own view from speaker to gallery. It's in the top right-hand corner.
Okay. And okay. I'm Carol Elena Aronoff, and I live in the country on the big island of Hawaii, surrounded by incredible beauty. I have ginger and heliconia flowers and fruit trees outside my window, a view of the ocean, wild pigs, fire ants, and other assorted creatures. I've been living here since, 28 years anyway. And before that, I was teaching holistic health, Eastern perspectives, meditation and imagery and psychology at San Francisco State. I started writing just before I left the university. And when I got here, the poems were just falling out of me. I'd be walking and writing, and found my meditation experience and my time in nature my main sources of inspiration. I've published 6 full-length collections and 4 chapbooks, the last 2 published, self-published on issue.com during the pandemic, and offered free in exchange for hopefully donations to relevant nonprofits. One is called Going Nowhere in the Time of Corona, and the other one about Black Lives Matter, A Time to Listen. And the book I'm going to be speaking about today, The Gift of Not Finding, Poems for Meditation, published by Homestead Lighthouse Press, October 2020. This is a book about nature and spirit, about the sacredness of everyday life, our interconnectedness with nature and each other, and oneness with all that is. It's a poem about presence and noticing, finding the wonder and joy in little things like the flowering weed in a crack in the pavement or the rainbow in an oil slick on the road. And these poems are meant to evoke stillness and peace, openness and awareness, and the kind of spaciousness and open-heartedness that allows us to include everything just as it is. And it feels like a time for us to be able to be present and calm in the midst of all the turbulence and craziness. It also speaks about the gifts of gratitude and kindness. And the poem I'm going to be reading today is called Make Offerings. And it came out of my experiences with different spiritual traditions and finding a way to turn everything into blessing and into a more positive experience. Make offerings to those you venerate, Buddha, Bodhisattvas, the ones who dedicate their lives for us, Jesus, Mary, Mother of Mercy, all the saints who help with everyday things. Burn incense for the unnameable divine, offer prayers to deities, to mythic gods and goddesses, to one or many, to the all. Remember the ancestors. When you're out in nature, build an altar of stones and flowers. A single piece of fruit will do. Feel the rain of blessings, then offer them to city dwellers, to those who live in caves. When you're eating, offer food to those who have none, and pray that everyone can eat as well as you do. Light a candle for those in darkness. Light the room in gratitude for whatever you can think of. Offer up everything, night terrors, the bliss of loving freely, hopes and fears that make us human and bind us to each other. Feed the hungry ghosts and demons. When you're down or lonely, make offerings. When you're waiting for your ride and traffic jams will cause you to be late, make offerings. Use your imagination. Always give more than you receive. A smile, a large gratuity for the waitress working 2 shifts in a row. Kiss the postman for not opening your mail. Worship generosity. You cannot share too much. If you give everything away, you'll find that you have more than you ever dreamed of. When you are ill, pray that through your illness, others will not suffer. Offer them your healing and exchange it for their misery or pain. Breathe in the hardship, breathe in, transform the violence of the world. Breathe out your love and let it radiate to all of space. Keep something in your pocket for those who have less. Help clear your elderly neighbor's yard. Fertilize her lawn with kindness. The key to ahimsa, no harm. Make every moment an offering. Supplicate for peace. Sing the praises of garbage collectors and window cleaners. Prostrate to waterfalls and elephants. Call on Tara, St. Teresa. Pray for travelers who help in war-torn places. Each prayer of thankfulness, each petition will set a butterfly free and warm the hand of a political prisoner, giving small comfort. Light butter lamps and bonfires. Make offerings as if your life depended on it. Thank you.
That's excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Several of you have posted where we can find your books. You can save me some time and effort, and that's a totally selfish thing if you'll actually find the link and put it in the chat so I don't have to go do that for each of you afterwards. Next presenter is Judy. You're still muted.
Hi, I'm Judy Kronenfeld, and I live in Southern California in Riverside. Groaning and Singing is my 5th full-length collection. I have 2 chapbooks as well. And I think the best thing for me to do is to read a little description that I wrote about this book. And here's that. Our memory is the only help that is left to them. Theodore Adorno's words, the epigraph of Judy Kronenfeld's poem, Saving the Dead, epitomize a central theme of her elegiac yet life-affirming collection that would prevent memory from drifting, quote, into the dilating voids of space. Groaning and Singing invokes ancestors known and unknown, and evokes the stories of parents and wider family in the particularity that demonstrates the truths and gifts of their lives. It evokes communities, the urban lonely, the women, quote, blotched and spotted with our walkers and canes gathered in sheerly beloved, even the sufferers of the incandescently unimaginable pain of history, violence, oppression, disease. But also present is the now of gratefulness for mourning, commonplace and miraculous, for sudden joy, like dripping fistfuls of sequin confetti flung into the air and hanging for a moment, crackling like fireworks. Before I read my one poem, I think I'll read one blurb as well. It's interesting when you ask people to write blurbs, sometimes they give you a take on your book that you didn't really see. So that's kind of what happened to me with Grace Cavalieri's blurb. So I'd enjoy reading that to you. Judy Kronenfeld's Groaning and Singing is a heart on paper, wide open with memory, detail, reverence, and recollection so vivid you will think you were there with the writer. Parents feature in these lyrical narratives. We know their flaws and their grace. Death is present, that's inevitable. Yet these poems triumph over loss with a ringing affirmation for the past. Poetry heals as it's being written, and Kronenfeld's collection of stories has a philosophical underpinning about how we transcend our daily troubles. The book also has a social conscience and a sharp look at society. Quote, bless us all, social beasts that we are. And always in each poem, a merciful look at our common humanity. So that's Grace's blurb, for which I'm very grateful indeed. I'll read the last poem in the book, which is perhaps an evening, commonplace and miraculous poem, and really about our love, or my love and your love, I'm sure, of our threatened planet, just where we are in the galaxy, in the universe, this little planet with one moon. Terrestrial, pale gibbous rock, craters and mountains almost showing, blooming into the blue wash of early evening as I leave the grocery looking up, and the black birds flowing underneath, scrolling and unscrolling. What are you gazing at? Someone on her way in asks, expectation in her voice, as if a planetary phenomenon might be occurring. Just the moon, I say, our piece of stone, low in the wide brush of sky, claimable, familiar, strange. For a moment, not the moon, silver disk hammered to an adornment's thinness, but simply a moon in its 3D rockiness, as if I were looking out at a barren body spun off a spiraling exoplanet over some primordial horizon. Yet how soon, unhesitating, evening sinks down with slow, accustomed graciousness as I drive home. It's almost dark as I carry my bread, cheese, and apples tenderly from the car. The mica flake moon fixed above my chimney begins its glittering. What an unearned sense of completion as I unlock my door, as if I'd been out for hours in the perturbations of the air, as if I'd helped steer the blazing sun to its hiding place in the sea.
Thank you. Now I can see all of the applause. I love it. I believe that Scott Ferry should be up next. Yes, Scott.
Hello. So this collection I have here is called Skinless in the Cereal Aisle. I posted something on Facebook that kind of explained as a preface to the book that I went through some anxiety kind of centered around the pandemic. I know a lot of us have kind of been there, but a lot of these poems came out of that. And it's just kind of, you know, poetry for me is kind of therapy at the same time as creating art. But then I realized that, hey, maybe this book could help somebody else through that as well. And I started to think of it as kind of like important to get it out there. Not that, you know, that my poetry is important, but that it could actually be important to help others. So I was like, okay, well, let's get this thing out as quick as I can. So Inspired over in England actually put it out. So let me read a poem from it. It's definitely gritty. Prayer for Harpy's teeth and Harpy's tongues. I can't remember everyone who told me I was worthless, but I know exactly who yelled at me for whatever reason. I scream at my children sometimes. I am a devil. My father taught me to scream. He is dead too young because the rage perverted his marrow. I know every person has these memories boxed and taped in the inner cranial space, fomenting like spider wombs. I can't write this correctly because of the anger spitting out of God's wounds of each innocent pair of hands de-skinned by fear, by people who don't love themselves enough. So easy to say, so easy to say. By people who have no skin because they never realized they deserve to grow it back. By people who are jealous or careful of each sharp fang lining their milky mouths. I am not innocent. I am in the whirlpool of serpents with half of my body flayed. I want all of these grafts to bud along a glowing edge, anemone pulp and flesh gill. If God was a medicine, if love was easy, if words did not hurt. We could be chrome and steam and hands melting butter. We could answer with yes, with a silent silver hum, our mercury a shield inside sleep, a holding of all the light that was stolen.
Thank you.
All right. I know that's really short. Am I allowed to read 2 poems or no?
No, that's it.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
I will tell the rest of you, this is a book worth having. One of the very few perks that I get from being editor of Verse Virtual is that I'm actually continuing a practice that Firestone started of building a reference library. And any of you who feel that you would like to contribute a copy of the book that you're presenting, I will post my address in the chat, and I would love to have that, but that's a voluntary thing, not a requirement. I wouldn't want you to feel like that was an obligation. Stephen Deutsch is going to be our next presenter. And take it away, Stephen.
That'll help.
Yeah, unmuting helps.
Okay. I'm Steve Deutsch. I write narrative poetry. Many people think that what I write is true, and that's great, but it isn't, and that's even better. Although there's a hint of the characters I grew up with and my family and friends. I grew up in a combat zone in Brooklyn. I've been a professor at Penn State now for about 30 years, doing fluid mechanics of hearts and heart valves and drag reduction. And about 10 years ago, I started taking classes in poetry, got into a wonderful poetry group. My book is called Going, Going, Gone. It's my 3rd book with Kelsey Press. That's a picture of my uncle. I just don't know which uncle. Of course, my mom left behind 100,000 photographs, not one of which was labeled. So it's either Melvin or Harold. Anyway, I find working with Kelsey very nice, very easy. My poem is Message in a Bottle. It's a topic I keep coming back to again and again and again, sort of friends gone missing. Anyway, Message in a Bottle. I was hoping you might read this, come upon it unexpectedly in that journal with the intriguing name you often fan through, but never buy, in that famed bookstore on the avenue, in the city you now call home, or in a dog-eared, stained anthology broken by age on a crowded shelf between Hammonds and Auden, in the library just down the block from the garden apartment you share with your sister, or hear it read on YouTube accompanied by viola and cello by that old poet whose once sonorous voice is fading faster than his face, as you wait for dinner in that care facility overlooking the once scenic lake. And you might have the urge to reach me one last time before the meter expires on the lives we have borrowed. But better perhaps if not. And anyway, how? Still, I hope you're reading this now. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Our next presenter, I haven't seen him on here, so we're going to go to Penny.
Do you make my picture big?
You'll have to make your own picture big.
I have to click on it? How do I do it?
In top right-hand corner, there should be a little thing that says view.
Yeah.
If you click that, it gives you a choice between speaker and gallery. That's what will show on your computer. What's recording, I already have you as the speaker view.
Well, I hit speaker, but I must be. Am I?
Go for it.
Okay. I'm Penny Harter. I live now in the South Jersey Shore area, a little town called Mays Landing. It's about a half-hour inland from the Atlantic City and Ocean City, New Jersey. Kind of triangulated, country roads, no more parking on the parking lot of the parkway. I'm a former high school English teacher, been retired for a while now, been writing since my 20s. I moved down here from North Jersey after 11 years in Santa Fe with Bill Higginson, my late husband. We moved back and then he died a few years later. And my daughter and family live down here. I'm a grandma, and through Bill's daughter, I just became a great grandma. Good grief. So I have a number of books, but my two most recent books are with Kelsey, and I echo what a wonderful press they are to work with. And the book I'm going to be reading from is Stillwater Days, okay, which just came out in 2022. These are poems that I wrote sometimes daily during the earlier months of the pandemic. And my purpose was similar to what some of the others of you have said, which is to reach out and offer hope and affirmation and comfort during what for all of us were very hard times. And partly, of course, to pull myself up out of it too. So I'm going to read a poem of comfort. Sometimes night thoughts are hard. It's called A Song Before Sleep. And it's based on a quote by Rilke, I would like to sing someone to sleep, from a poem of his called To Say Before Sleep. A song before sleep. I think it will be a song without words, or perhaps a song in a language I invent, a gently babbling stream. If I can open the mouth of my heart, my hope chest of memory, perhaps a chant I learned by heart and sang at evensong in some lost monastic life, will find voice and rise to comfort both myself and you. I may merely hum, voice vibrating deep in my chest, as I follow the thread of a familiar melody I can't quite recall, maybe the one I hummed years ago to my infant grandson while holding a nebulizer over his nose and mouth and rocking us both until he hummed back. If my song does find words, may they be words that cradle you as you drift through the twilight door that swings between day and dark. May they be balm to your spirit, soothing you as if you were a child again, your head on my shoulder. And may your breathing time to mine as you find the deep room of sleep and stay there, although the wind moans in the eaves, blowing night rain against your windows. And even when thunder knocks hard at your dreams, know that it too is simply raising its own wordless song. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. I like that. Gallery view for a moment. Okay.
Jim, I put my website up and they can find the links to Kelsey and to Amazon there.
Thank you. So our next presenter, I didn't say hi earlier, but hi, Penelope is up next.
Hi, I'm Penelope Moffet. It feels appropriate to follow another, I assume, Penelope, Penny Harter, whose poems I like very much. I'm going to read from my second chapbook, which is called It Isn't That They Mean to Kill You. And it was published 4 years ago by Arroyo Seco Press. Mostly these are poems of the desert. I've spent a lot of time out at my friend Jane Culp's house near the small town of Anza, near the Anza-Borrego Desert. And sometimes she's there, sometimes she's not there. And if she's not there, there are a great many bird duties to perform because Jane believes in supporting the local birds. This is the cover of the book. That's one of Jane's paintings on the cover. She's a really amazing artist. And I've gone back and forth like 5 times about which poem to read. I think I'm going to read the last poem in the book. But first I'm going to take an idea that I just got from Judy, which it wouldn't have occurred to me to read one of the blurbs. I'm going to read one of the blurbs from the back of the book, which was written by Donna Hilbert. And although it's sort of embarrassingly generous, this is what Donna said about the book. Penelope Moffet doesn't flinch in the face of the real, but finds its essence under the scrim of the obvious. In my reckoning, it is the task of the poet to illuminate for others places they may not wish but need to visit. From Ode to the Poop Bucket, you too reminded what's more pleasant to forget. Moffet is an intelligent, observant, painterly guide through the intersections of human-animal behavior. So that was just really nice of Donna to write that. And then, as you all know, Donna's a staunch member of the verse ritual community. The poem that I'm going to read has to do with a raven who is a character in the book. And it is the last poem in the book. It's also the first poem that Verse Ritual ever published of mine. In 2017, Firestone Feinberg, this is the first poem that he selected and things that I'd sent. It's called And Ka Comes Back for More. Greedy bird, landing on the porch rail, announcing your presence and your name. Twice today already, I've put meatball offerings in your bowl to elevate the undergirding puppy chow. Twilight, the gob of cow fat just bestowed is not for you. It's consecrated to the kit fox god, 4-footed spirit expected after dark. But you, dear bird, are a jealous bird, and here you are again, glossy, self-entitled thief, spearing the 6-inch yellow blob and gliding off down canyon, for once mollified and mute. And on the facing page, there's a drawing by Jane, which I hope you can see, of Ka. Thanks.
Wonderful. I recently received a library copy of that, and I happened to have a free evening. I went through the entire thing. I love it. Thank you. So we are now at a point where all of those who were scheduled and who are here have done their presentation. So I am going to, at this point, end the recording, but I'm going to leave the meeting open because the after party discussions are always lots of fun. Thank you all for coming.